The morning sunlight filtered through the glass walls of Hartfield Enterprises, painting golden stripes across the polished marble floor. Employees moved briskly, carrying files, coffee, and the usual Monday fatigue. In the middle of all that motion stood Emma Carter, the woman everyone admired, CEO at 34.
Graceful, confident, and always smiling.
But that smile wasn't real. Behind her confident eyes lived a silence that no one dared to touch. She walked through the corridors with elegance, every step echoing authority. Yet inside her chest, there was a weight, a hollow ache that success could never fill. As she entered her office, her assistant, Lila, greeted her. "Good morning, Miss Carter. You've got a meeting with the board at 10. Emma nodded, placing her coffee on the desk, her voice calm as always. "Thank you, Lila. Please hold my calls for the next hour." The door shut, and suddenly the world outside disappeared. Emma leaned back in her chair, staring at the framed photo on her desk, a smiling couple standing near a lake. Her fingers brushed against the glass, trembling slightly. "Good morning, Michael," she whispered. But Michael had been gone for 3 years. Her husband's sudden death in a car crash had changed everything. The woman who once laughed freely had turned into a quiet storm. She buried herself in work, building an empire, while burying her pain deeper every day. People called her strong. She called herself numb. Her phone buzzed. It was a reminder. Anniversary, 3 years since Michael. She stared at it for a long moment, her throat tightening. Then she turned the screen face down. Emma stood up, walked toward the window, and looked down at the city she ruled. Thousands of people living, laughing, struggling, while she stood above them all, alone in her own tower of glass. And for the first time that morning, a tear rolled down her cheek. The city outside buzzed with life, but inside Emma's heart, everything was still. She left her office early that evening, something she rarely did. Her driver looked surprised when she said softly, "No meetings tonight, James, just drive."
"Where to, ma'am?"
She hesitated for a moment. "The old house,
"By Lake Arlington."
The words hung heavy in the air. It had been years since she'd gone there, the home she once shared with Michael.
As the car rolled out of the city lights and into the quiet suburbs,
Memories began to blur the line between past and present. She could almost hear his laughter again. The way Michael used to tease her about overworking. "Emma, even God rested on the 7th day," he'd say with that crooked smile. She smiled faintly now, remembering, but it didn't last. When she reached the lake house, the evening sun was dipping low, coloring the sky in orange and blue. The door creaked as she pushed it open. Dust floated through the golden light, and the air smelled like time. Old wood and forgotten days. Everything was still in its place. The couch, the bookshelf, the piano Michael loved to play. On the table lay a small photo frame, slightly tilted. Emma picked it up. It was their wedding photo. She ran her fingers across it, tracing his face as tears welled in her eyes. She sat down quietly, her thoughts whispering with the wind. "You said forever, Michael," she murmured, but forever was only 5 years. The silence answered her, deep, cold, and endless. Her phone rang suddenly, breaking the stillness. It was her friend and business partner, Jacob. "Emma, are you all right? You left the office without saying a word." "I'm fine," she lied. Jacob hesitated, his tone softening. "You don't have to carry it all alone, you know." Emma didn't reply. She simply looked out the window toward the lake, where the reflection of the sunset danced like fire over the water.
As darkness slowly spread, she whispered, "I don't know how to stop missing him." Outside, the night grew deeper, and so did the emptiness within her. Part 3. The Stranger at the Lake.
The night at Lake Arlington was cold and silent. The moonlight shimmered across the still water, casting silver ripples that seemed to echo her loneliness.
Emma sat on the porch, wrapped in Michael's old jacket.
The scent of it, faint but familiar, brought back too many memories. Suddenly she heard footsteps. Her heart skipped. The sound was steady, approaching from the path near the trees. Emma stood up, tense but curious. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice trembling slightly. A tall man stepped into the dim light, rugged, tired-looking, with a week's worth of stubble and eyes that carried the same emptiness she felt inside. "I didn't mean to scare you," he said softly. "I was just passing through." Emma frowned. "This is private property." "I know," he replied, looking down. "I used to fish here years ago, before it got sold. I didn't think anyone still came here." Something about his tone, quiet, broken, made her pause. He didn't look like a threat, more like someone who had been running from something. Emma hesitated, then nodded toward the porch. "You can sit." If you want. The man blinked in surprise. Are you sure? Yeah, she said quietly. I could use some company. He sat a few feet away, both of them staring at the lake in silence. After a long pause, he spoke. My name's Daniel. Emma, she replied. They didn't talk much. Just sat there. Two strangers bound by an invisible thread of grief.
Finally, Daniel asked, You come here often?
Not anymore, Emma said, her voice low. I used to, with my husband.
He died 3 years ago. Daniel looked down.
I'm sorry. Emma glanced at him. What about you? You look like someone who's lost something, too. He exhaled slowly. Yeah, my brother. He got into bad stuff, drugs, gangs. I tried to pull him out, but I was too late. The wind blew softly between them, carrying both their silences into the night. For the first time in years, Emma didn't feel completely alone.
There was something about Daniel's honesty. His pain mirrored hers.
And in that quiet darkness by the lake, two broken souls found a fragile moment of peace. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the dusty windows of the lake house. Emma woke up on the couch, a blanket draped over her shoulders. For a moment, she didn't remember how it got there. Then she saw
Daniel sitting outside on the porch,
sipping coffee from an old mug. She walked out quietly. You stayed? He looked at her and smiled faintly. Didn't want to leave you here alone. You looked lost. Emma gave a half smile. I've been lost for a long time. They both laughed softly, the kind of laugh that hides years of pain. Daniel handed her the mug. It's not great coffee, but it's warm. Warm's good, she said, taking it. For a while, they just sat there, two souls trying to remember what peace felt like. Emma finally asked, You said your brother was into bad things. What happened to him? Daniel's gaze dropped. He was killed. Street shooting in Southside Chicago. I tried to save him, but he clenched his jaw. The world doesn't forgive mistakes. Emma nodded slowly. Neither does the heart. The air grew heavy again. Then Daniel turned to her. What about you, Emma? You have everything people dream of. Money, success, power. Why are you here hiding in an old house? She looked at the lake, her reflection trembling in the rippling water. Because success can't bring back the person you love. I built my empire trying to forget him, but all I did was build walls around myself. Daniel's voice softened. Maybe it's time to stop building walls and start living again. Emma sighed.
And how do you do that when the one person who made you feel alive is gone?
Daniel didn't answer right away. He just looked at her, his eyes steady. You find something worth living for again, even if it's just one small thing.
One reason.
Emma stared back, feeling something shift inside her. A small flicker of warmth she hadn't felt in years. Then Daniel stood up. I have to go back to the city today, but can I come by again sometime? Emma hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I'd like that. As he walked away, she watched him until he disappeared down the old path.
For the first time in 3 years,
Emma Carter felt the faintest spark of hope. Fragile, uncertain, but real. And somewhere deep inside, she whispered to herself, maybe this is where healing begins. 2 weeks had passed since Daniel left the lake house. Emma had returned to the city, to her office, to her routine. But something inside her had shifted. The silence she once drowned in now felt lighter, as if a window had opened in a long-closed room. That morning, while reviewing contracts, she caught herself thinking of Daniel's words, find one reason to live again. Her assistant, Lila, noticed the change. Miss Carter, you've been smiling more lately, she said softly. Emma blinked. Have I? Yes, and it looks good on you. For the first time, Emma didn't hide the smile. Thank you, Lila. Later that evening, as she drove home, Emma noticed the city differently. The street musicians, the laughter outside cafes, even the smell of rain-soaked asphalt. Everything seemed alive again, like the world had color she'd forgotten existed. When she reached home, her phone buzzed.
Unknown number. Hey, it's Daniel.
Hope I'm not interrupting your empire building. Emma laughed quietly before replying. You're safe. The empire can wait. Daniel. Good. I'm in the city for a few days. Maybe coffee? She stared at the screen for a moment, her heart unexpectedly beating faster. Then she typed, tomorrow 6 p.m. at Willow's Cafe. That night Emma stood on her balcony, the lights of New York stretching endlessly below.
For the first time in 3 years,
she didn't feel the weight of loneliness crushing her chest. Somewhere deep inside, she whispered, maybe it's time to start over. And for the first time she believed it. The little bell above the door chimed as Emma stepped into Willow's Cafe. Sun, smell of roasted coffee beans, and soft jazz music filled the air. It was the kind of place Michael used to love. And for a moment her chest tightened. But then she saw Daniel sitting by the window, and that heaviness eased just a little. He looked up and smiled. The kind of smile that didn't demand anything. Emma Carter, CEO of Hartfield Enterprises, drinking coffee with an ordinary guy like me. I feel honored. She laughed lightly, taking a seat. You say that like you're not mysterious enough yourself, Daniel? He raised an eyebrow. Mysterious, huh? I'll take that. They talked for hours about books, cities, loss, and life. Emma found herself opening up in ways she hadn't in years. She told him how she built her company from scratch after Michael's death, how she worked 16-hour days just to avoid silence.
Daniel listened quietly.
That's not strength, Emma. That's survival. You've been surviving, not living. She looked at him, taken aback. And you? You think you're living?
Daniel's eyes darkened.
I'm trying. I do odd jobs, keep moving, pretend I've forgiven myself for my brother's death.
But truth is,
I'm still stuck there. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The sound of rain began tapping against the glass. It felt as if the whole city was listening to their silence. Then Daniel reached across the table and gently touched her hand. You're not alone in your pain, Emma. You never were. She looked down at their hands, her heart trembling, unsure whether to pull away or hold on. Something inside her, something buried for years, began to stir again. They sat there until the cafe lights dimmed, talking softly, laughing occasionally, letting their wounds breathe in the quiet.
When Emma finally stepped outside, the rain had stopped. Daniel walked her to her car, and before she got in, he said,
You helped me remember what peace feels like. She smiled softly. You too, Daniel. As she drove away, she realized something she hadn't said out loud yet. She was no longer living in Michael's shadow. Over the next few weeks, Daniel and Emma saw each other often, sometimes for coffee, sometimes for long walks through Central Park. For the first time in years, Emma laughed without forcing herself to. Daniel had a way of making the world feel lighter, even when his own heart was heavy. But peace never lasts long for people who've known too much pain. One night, as Emma returned home from a charity dinner, she found a familiar envelope slid under her apartment door. There was no name, just her own in bold letters.
Her hands trembled as she opened it.
Inside was an old photograph. Her husband, Michael, standing with a man she didn't recognize. And behind it, a note. You don't know who he really was. Emma froze. Her mind raced. Michael?
The man she loved, trusted with her life. What could this mean?
Her breath quickened. She called Daniel without thinking. Daniel, I need you to come over, please. Within 30 minutes, he was at her door. She handed him the envelope silently. Daniel looked at the photo, then at her. Who's the other guy? I don't know, she whispered. But this handwriting, it looks familiar. Someone's trying to tell me something. Daniel studied the note. Could it be business related? Maybe someone from your company. Emma shook her head. No, this isn't corporate. This feels personal. She sat down on the couch, clutching the photo. Michael was everything to me. If there was something he hid, I don't know if I can bear it.
Daniel knelt beside her.
Then don't face it alone. Whatever this is, we'll find out together. Emma looked into his eyes. Steady, protective, honest. For the first time, she realized how much she trusted him.
Outside, thunder cracked across the sky, rain hammering the windows.
Inside, Emma's heart pounded with a fear she hadn't felt since the night she lost Michael. The storm outside raged, but the one inside her was just beginning. The rain continued all night. Emma barely slept. By morning, her desk was covered with old photo albums, documents, and letters she hadn't touched in years. She needed to know, who was the man standing next to Michael in that photograph?
Daniel arrived early, bringing 2 cups of coffee.
You've been up all night, he said quietly.
Emma nodded.
I had to be. There's something here I missed. She spread out the photo and pointed to a faint logo on the back, a company name barely visible, Ravenwood Security. I checked the archives, she said. Michael never worked with them. But this logo, it's tied to a series of corporate fraud cases. The FBI investigated them years ago.
Daniel frowned.
So Michael could have been involved? Her chest tightened. I don't want to believe that. But I can't ignore this anymore. Daniel placed a gentle hand on hers. We'll find the truth, Emma, whatever it is. They drove to an old address listed on one of Michael's old business cards. A storage unit on the outskirts of the city. The place was quiet, forgotten, the air heavy with dust and oil. Inside the unit were boxes stacked high, marked property of MC. Emma's heart raced as she opened one. Inside were files, documents, receipts, and coded papers linking Michael's name to Ravenwood Securities transactions. She stepped back, dizzy. No, this can't be real.
Michael wasn't a liar. Daniel scanned the papers. Emma,
These look like transfers. Large amounts. Offshore accounts. Maybe he was protecting you? Tears blurred her eyes. Protecting me from what? Before Daniel could answer, they heard a sound, footsteps echoing down the hallway. Daniel whispered, "Someone's here." He quickly pulled Emma behind the stacks of boxes. A shadow moved near the entrance, tall and steady. The door creaked open. A voice echoed through the storage space. "I warned you, Emma. Some doors should never be opened." Emma froze. That voice, she recognized it. It was Jacob, her business partner and Michael's closest friend. Emma's breath caught in her throat. "Jacob?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "What is he doing here?"
Daniel motioned for her to stay quiet as they crouched behind the boxes.
Jacob stepped inside the storage unit, his footsteps slow and deliberate. He looked around, then spoke coldly. "You shouldn't have come here, Emma. Michael tried to keep you away from this world. But you couldn't let go, could you?"
Emma's heart raced.
What was he talking about? Jacob walked closer, his face lit by the dim light from the corridor. "I told him this company would destroy us all," he muttered. But Michael didn't listen. And now, look what's left. A widow, digging up graves that should have stayed buried. Emma couldn't stay hidden anymore. She stood up suddenly. "Jacob, what are you talking about? What company? What did you and Michael do?" Jacob froze, his eyes widening. "Emma, you shouldn't have come." Daniel stepped beside her protectively. "Start talking, Jacob, or I swear—" Jacob smirked bitterly. "You don't know what you're dealing with, kid." Emma stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "Tell me the truth." Jacob sighed heavily. "Michael wasn't the man you thought he was. Emma, he and I were working with Ravenwood, laundering money for high-profile clients. But when he realized who we were working for, people with blood on their hands." He tried to back out. Emma shook her head in disbelief. "You're lying." "I wish I were," Jacob said softly. "He wanted to go to the authorities. They would have killed him, and you. So he made it look like an accident." The room spun around her. Her hands trembled. "You mean his death?" Jacob looked down. "He planned it, Emma, to protect you." Her body went cold. The floor felt like it disappeared beneath her feet. Daniel held her as she broke down, whispering, "No, he wouldn't have done that." Jacob's voice softened. "He loved you, Emma. Enough to give up everything, even his life." Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. Then Daniel asked quietly, "Why tell us now?" Jacob's face hardened. "Because the people who killed Michael know you're digging again. And they're coming." For a long moment, Emma couldn't breathe. The air in the storage unit felt heavy, thick with the weight of truth and danger. Her husband's death.
Not an accident?
He had faked it to protect her. Everything she thought she knew was crumbling inside her.
Daniel gripped her shoulders.
"Emma, we have to go, now."
But Jacob raised his hand.
"Wait. If you leave, they'll find you. You need to listen to me." Emma glared at him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You lied to me for years."
You stood beside me at his funeral knowing this.
Jacob's face twisted in pain. "I was trying to keep you safe."
Ravenwood's reach goes deep. Politicians, law enforcement, even inside your company.
"They've been watching you, Emma. If they know you've reopened Michael's trail, they'll come for you next."
A loud sound echoed outside, a car door slamming.
Daniel turned sharply. "We're not alone." Jacob swore under his breath. "They found us faster than I thought." "Who?" Emma asked, terrified. Before he could answer, the sound of boots and muffled voices came from the hall. Daniel grabbed Emma's hand. "Back exit, now." They ran through the dark corridor, the flickering lights making their shadows dance wildly on the walls.
Behind them, the door burst open. Rough voices shouted.
"Don't let them get away." Jacob stayed behind, shouting, "Go!" "I'll stall them." Emma looked back, panic flooding her voice. "Jacob, come with us." He shook his head.
If I don't stop them, none of you make it out.
The gunfire started. The noise was deafening. Daniel pulled Emma through a side door into the rain-soaked alley, both of them running until their lungs burned. They didn't stop until they reached the car.
Daniel started the engine with trembling hands.
Emma looked out the window. The storage building was burning in the distance. Tears rolled down her cheeks. He stayed behind, for us. Daniel drove fast, his eyes on the rearview mirror. "We can't go home. They'll track us. We need to disappear, at least for a while." Emma nodded, her voice breaking. "All these years I thought my pain was over."
But it was only the beginning.
Daniel looked at her, his voice steady. "Then we face it together." And for the first time, Emma wasn't running from her past. She was running through it. The next morning, Emma woke up in a small roadside motel far away from the city lights. The air smelled of coffee and dust, and for a moment, she almost believed it was a bad dream. But the pain in her chest reminded her it was all real. Daniel sat on a chair by the window, his gun on the nightstand. He hadn't slept all night. When Emma stirred, he looked at her and tried to smile. "You okay?" he asked softly. She shook her head. "No, but I'm breathing. That's a start." He nodded. "We can't stay long."
"I've changed the car plates, but they'll still be looking for us."
Emma sat up, staring at the newspaper on the table.
The headline read,
"Explosion in downtown. 1 dead, 2 missing." Jacob's picture wasn't there, but she knew. Her throat tightened. "Jacob's gone," she whispered. Daniel looked down. He knew what he was doing. Silence filled the room, heavy, thick, and painful. Then Emma spoke again. "I can't keep running. If I want this to end, I need to know the truth about Michael and about Ravenwood."
Daniel hesitated.
"You're not ready for that truth."
Emma's eyes flared.
"After everything I've lost, don't tell me what I'm ready for." He sighed and reached into his bag, pulling out an old black folder. "Michael gave me this before he vanished. He said if anything ever happened to him,
"I should protect you and give you this only when you're strong enough."
Her hands trembled as she took it. The folder was worn and stained, as if it had traveled through fire and rain. Inside were photographs, coded documents, and one letter written in Michael's handwriting. She opened it slowly. "Emma, if you're reading this, it means the lies have reached you too. I did what I had to do. Not for me, but for you. Ravenwood is not a company.
It's a cover.
They're building something that could control millions. I couldn't let them finish it. They killed my team because we tried to stop them, but I'm still alive. And if you want the truth, find the place where it all began. Redwood Facility, Oregon." Emma froze. Her husband alive.
Daniel watched her expression shift from grief to shock to determination.
"Emma," he said quietly, "you know this could be a trap." She met his eyes, her voice steady. "Or it could be the only way to bring him home." Outside, the sun was rising, but for Emma, it felt like the dawn of a war she could no longer avoid. The road to Oregon stretched endlessly, miles of forest, fog, and fading sunlight. Emma sat in the passenger seat, holding Michael's letter like it was a heartbeat she could still feel. Daniel drove silently, every mile bringing them closer to a truth neither of them might survive. By nightfall, they reached Redwood Facility, an abandoned government site deep in the woods. Rusted gates, flickering security lights, and the echo of rain hitting metal roofs. Daniel parked the car and whispered, "Stay close." Inside, everything smelled of decay and old electricity. They followed the corridor until a metal door
appeared, the same name painted
faintly above it.
Ravenwood Project.
Emma's hands shook as she typed in the code from the letter. The door hissed open.
Inside was a cold lab,
filled with broken computers and shattered glass, and in the center, a man. He turned around slowly. "Emma!" Her knees weakened. It was Michael, alive, scarred, and older, but undeniably him. She ran to him, tears streaming down her face. "I thought you were dead. Why didn't you come back? Why let me suffer like this?" He held her tightly, his voice trembling. "Because they were watching. If I had tried to reach you, they'd have killed you too." Daniel stood quietly by the door, his gun lowered. He watched them, but his instincts screamed. Something was off. Suddenly, the sound of boots echoed down the hallway. Dozens of armed men rushed in. "Drop your weapons," a voice barked. Michael's face hardened. "They found us." Emma looked at him, horrified. "You led them here?" He shook his head violently.
"No, I tried to stop them, but they tracked you, Emma, through that letter."
Bullets shattered the silence. Daniel grabbed Emma and pulled her behind a metal pillar. Michael fired back, shouting, "Go!
Get out now."
The chaos was deafening. Sparks, smoke, screams. Then a blast shook the room.
Daniel shielded Emma with his body as the ceiling collapsed.
When the dust settled, Emma crawled toward the wreckage. Michael was lying still, his eyes open, a faint smile on his lips. "Tell our story," he whispered. "Make it mean something." And then silence.
Hours later, police sirens wailed in the distance.
Emma sat outside the ruined facility, Daniel beside her, both bloodied and broken. The dawn light cut through the mist, a pale reminder that life, somehow, always returns. Emma whispered, "He died saving us. But he also gave me something else." Daniel looked at her. "What?" She stared at the horizon. "A reason to live again." Epilogue. Months later, Emma stood before a large audience at a press conference.
Behind her, The screen displayed, Ravenwood exposed, truth over power.
Her voice was calm, strong, unshaken. My husband gave his life to uncover a lie. I'm here to finish what he started. For him, for truth, and for every voice that was silenced. The cameras flashed. Outside, the wind carried a whisper through the city, the kind of silence that heals, not haunts.
And Emma Carter, the woman once broken, finally walked away, whole again.
Until the truth found her.